Hello and welcome back to Raise Gaming and more Path of Exile 2. Today I want to talk to you about a few different methods to farm out currency. Some of these you can do right now immediately. Some of them you're more wanting to do when you're presented with the right drop or opportunity. Now when I was initially making this video, I was waiting for that 0.1 patch announcement. What's coming, what to expect. And it turns out a lot of that patch appears to be more about quality of life and important but not massively meta impactful changes. For example, they clearly stated we won't have big changes to class power, builds, or enemy power not until they run their next league setup. With that context then, let's go forward with these methods and how they relate to that. First up, a pretty well-known thing and just kind of a topic about the patch that's coming, and that's checking what currencies you're sat on, because you may be sat on value that you're kind of wasting. For example, I'm sat on 43 Val orbs. In this moment right now, I don't need to have that many. Same for the Chaos orbs, I could half that. I've got 60 armor scraps that I'm not using for anything, a lot of artificer orbs, the arcanist etchers, the blacksmith whetstones, that type of thing. Another source of great value will be things like the gem cutter prisms if you're sat on these and you've currently got your skill gems to max quality, and then obviously the stacking value of lesser, greater, and then perfect jeweler's orbs. Further, it's worth noting that soul cores are actually, of course, valuable, but that value depends on the type of soul core you have, with the most valuable being the soul core of Azkapa. This is an interesting one in regards to the patch because there was a lot of assumption that the value of this would change. What it does is it provides you with percent increased rarity of items found by socking it into gear, so it's incredibly valuable. As you can see, over 200 exalted orbs for one of these. Now it was being predicted that this item could really reduce in value based on the patch that we were waiting on. Obviously it's a big topic right now that percent rarity on items, the gear that you're running, is overly valuable. So we thought that they might announce some sort of nerf to this concept. Well, they haven't. And even during, say, the interview that they continue to do after the announcements, they said that they were happy with where it is, but plan to look more into it in the future. If the perception is that rare find is mandatory on gear, then it is a problem. And in my opinion, I do believe it's mandatory. So this may change, but for now, and that patch in relevance to this item, I don't think this is actually going to drop in value. And so the value may actually change based on people feeling more secure with that patch, that rarity on items found isn't going to change initially in this upcoming patch. Anyway, the point is you might be sat on stuff that you can convert to exalts and maybe even divines. My tip isn't actually that. It's that waiting until after the patch is probably a very good idea, even though they're not making meta changes. People have been purchasing and selling generally a lot less over the last few days, and I think it's reasonable to assume that's because of that looming patch and not knowing what's going to be in it. How much of a change is it going to be? A lot of people have been worried about the top builds, the top classes getting nerfed. Your stormweavers, invokers, infernalist, deadeyes, the gemling, legionnaire, stat stackers, with them announcing that they're not going to be making meta changing changes in the league we're currently playing. People are going to feel a lot more reassured, and so trading should pick up again. However, the one thing that I think we have hope for is the armor change. They said that armor is going to get a buff. How much of a buff that is as I make this video, we don't know. They're going to release those patch notes at some point soon. But if it's a relevant change in any way, that means people might start running armor, or at least investing in it somewhat. Therefore, they're going to be running a lot of new gear. Therefore, they're going to have to add quality to a lot of new items. So, armor scraps are going to raise in value, maybe at least initially over the period that the demand jumps during, post-armor patch, with the buff that comes in with that. So yes, remember to check your currency and maybe things that you have too much of, convert to exalt, maybe even divines. But with armor scraps in particular, I advise you wait at least until after that patch, where I think demand might jump up at least initially, depending on how valuable that armor buff is. So let's move on to a method that you can act on right now with that in mind. This is one that's been popping up in popularity over the last few days, so it should change a little bit, but not massively. But I do think it's going to be especially relevant if armor becomes worth running post that patch. And again, a lot of people need to improve the quality in bigger numbers again. So armor scraps, they're going to jump up in value. It's a simple fact that people list items without knowing their true value. It's a common practice then to just drop stuff into, say, a dump tab. I have one that's set at 10x, but I do think a lot of people have one that's set at 5 or even 1. Plenty of items get listed at exactly 1 exalted orb. Well, it's not too uncommon to find items that actually have quality on them. Like, say, this one has 20%, the max. What happens when you take a 20% max quality armor piece? When you salvage it, you generate 4 armor scraps. And then if it has sockets, you're also going to generate artificer shards. So in this exact moment, you've got between 2 and 3 armor scraps, the value of 1 exalted orb. So as I took that singular piece and turned it into 4 armor scraps, I have almost generated 2 exalted orbs. So let's take a piece that has 5% quality instead. This provides us with 1. So it should be 1 per 5%. So in this case, there's 11%, so this should give us 2. Perfect. So if it's got 5%, you can get 1 scrap, which stacks up nicely very quickly. There's another 2. In fact, that was 3 because it was nearly 15. So with 12 armor scraps at this exact moment, I can get between 4 and 5 exalted orbs just like that. For whatever reason, people list things lazily. And so you might find that there is actually 20% quality items for sale for 1 exalted orb. So if you take a 20% quality piece of equipment, you get 4 armor scraps, which is almost 2 exalted orbs. So if you say buy 5 of these for 1 exalt each, you'll have 20 armor scraps at the end. So in this exact moment, 5 exalted orbs for 20 armor scraps is not the equal conversion. In fact, you get about 8 in this exact moment. So by making that simple trade, you're getting more exalted orbs than you're spending. Therefore, it is worth it to purchase 20% quality armor pieces for 1 exalt each, and then turn them into armor scraps and sell them. However, this is arguably like an unethical thing to do. You're essentially taking advantage of people that don't know any better. So rather than that, I would say that this is more of a useful PSA that, hey, you know, those things that you have 20% quality on, do not sell them for less than the value of the armor scraps you get by converting them into armor scraps. So in that exact moment, that would be what? 2 exalted orbs is the bare minimum for something that's 20% quality. But arguably, you'd want 3. This price may change though after the patch if armor ends up being relevantly buffed to the point where people are buying new gear and running new gear and they need to use armor scraps. So the value will shoot up and so armor scrap value should sell for more. Therefore, stacking up on your scraps now is going to be an important thing to do before the patch and maybe sell for better value after the patch. But also making sure that you're never selling something that has 20% quality on it unless you reach the bare minimum at least of the cost of salvaging it and selling the scraps instead. If you yourself want to snipe pieces that are being sold for 1 exalt at 20% quality, that's up to you. But obviously, I'm not sure I would really recommend that because, again, you're basically taking advantage of someone who doesn't know better. Either way, it's become a popular strategy, and now you aren't going to be vulnerable to it, hopefully. Next up, a quick concept that's more like being aware at the time. It's something I mentioned recently, but I just think it bears repeating in a video like this. It's very simple. You look at the currency exchange. We go divine orb versus the cost of exalted orbs. I've been watching this every day for a little while, and I noticed that it's going between 110 and 120, pretty stable now. It's not really going below that at this time. But I've noticed that the conversion rate obviously changes based on the time of day and also the time of week. It seems like when more people are online, more people are playing, they're generating more currency, more drops. More trading is happening. So the quote-unquote rarity of these trades or cost of these trades goes down. But when it's very late night or like low times during the week, there's less currency being produced in that moment. So the value seems to irk upwards. So we could take this average in this exact moment, about 117 exalted orbs to the divine. Let's say it's a really popular time, such as post-patch release. Loads of people are playing, and so these currencies are being generated more. The value of the divine orb drops, so it's less exalted orbs per divine orb. In that time, you could convert the exalted orbs into divine orbs and then wait until it's a calmer period in the day or night or say the week. As the exalted orb value goes back up again, you convert the divine orbs back into exalted. Basically, for doing nothing, generate exalted orbs, coming away from the exchange with 10 or 20 more than you started with per divine orb that you do. This is not something that you can just do out of will and do on the spot immediately. It's more about paying attention to the time of day and week and being aware when it goes up and down. Big spikes have stopped to happen though, but I'm saying this now because I do think post-patch things will spike in a direction, and being prepared for that and taking advantage of it if you can is something to have in mind. Well-timed conversion of currency, that's basically the concept. Next up then, let's talk about a known one in terms of a form of currency that's really good and turning items into uniques. It's the Orb of Chance. Unpredictably, either upgrades a normal item to a unique rarity, or destroys it. Now, obviously, this can result in a lot of different things. And with the patch information seemingly unaffecting any of this, which is what had people kind of holding onto their uniques a little bit, or at least maybe not chancing before they see if things are going to change, it seems like things are going to remain as we currently know it, which is helpful. So, Orb of Chancing items could result in, obviously, items worth many divines, as you probably know. You might be wondering though, what's the most valuable thing to run? To understand this to maximize your potential is obviously a good idea for which kind of things you're trying to pull. If we take a heavy bell and chance that, this could turn into headhunters, which turns out are about 12 divines at the moment I record this. But you could also try to roll something else, like Dream Fragments, Temporalis, or Astromentis, which are significantly more valuable. Here's a rundown of the least to most valuable of these options. There's the Ingenuity Utility Belt, that's about 4+ divines, so we'll be chancing utility belts like this for that one. Then we have heavy belts turning into headhunters, which is, like I said, about 12+ divines. Then we have Temporalis, that's 50+ divines, Dream Fragments, 60+, and Astromentis, which is over 100 divines right there. So logically, if you have an Orb of Chance, using it on a heavy belt or a utility belt, resulting in that rare unique roll, would be less valuable than most of the other ones. Instead, we'd aim for stellar amulets, obviously not a magic like this, but a normal one you can actually chance, because that could turn into the most valuable option, Astromentis. This is why, if we go to the website, we can see that stellar amulets are listed anywhere from 1 to 5 to 10 exalted orbs scaling. I don't think anyone's really going to reply to you for 1 or 2 or probably even 3. I think 5+ is much more reasonable. Basically, a base stellar amulet, because it can be chanced into such a valuable unique, is inherently valuable, and it may even be worth it for you to find a stellar amulet and instead not try to chance it and just sell the stellar amulet for a guaranteed exalt win. Under that in value then, we have the base sapphire rings, which are very commonly listed en masse for 1 exalted orb. So you very well may be able to get one for 1 exalted orb. This would turn into Dream Fragments, which is worth over 60 divines if it's a hit. Now interestingly, just under that in value we have the Temporalis unique item. So say in regards to silk robes and chancing these, they're listed at pretty steep prices, going up towards 10+, 15 towards 20 really quickly. Therefore, of those options, I would actually suggest you sell things like your base stellar amulets, the white normal versions, and say silk robes that you find, because these are going to be basically guaranteed wins. Whereas you could technically purchase these sapphire rings for 1 exalt every time that you ended up generating or finding an Orb of Chance. You can get an unbelievable win by doing this, but you know, you're risking the odds. Right now, the market value of an Orb of Chance is about 7 to 7.5 exalted orbs. So instead of even risking it, you could just sell the Orb of Chance for those 7 exalts. That's always an option. But I think because the potential is so high and you didn't really spend anything on it, unless you're desperate for exalts to be fair, then I would always be trying to Orb of Chance, and I would be running it on sapphire rings. And I would be selling my stellar amulets and silk robes for just raw exalts to get the guaranteed win. Ultimately, we're talking about getting something that's 50, 60+ divines, and then that could lead to most anything I want or need. So it's worth it for sapphire rings, in my opinion. But just keep in mind the context of that right now is the numbers are relevant in this exact moment. Things could change. They may nerf or buff things, although it doesn't look like it. But to be fair, there was a recent weird dupe with one of the uniques that of course greatly dropped the item in value. So you never know what's going to happen. So just check things yourself to make sure you're certain about what's most valuable, so you're always kind of informed. But yeah, if I generate an Orb of Chance, I'm going to roll it. And ideally I'd roll it on a sapphire ring, and that wouldn't happen. I'd actually get the thing. But there is that other side of it as a final topic for the video, and that's the idea of purchasing many Orbs of Chance. There's the whole like 100 Orbs of Chance, 100 belts, or 100 rings, or whatever, to see if you can challenge the numbers and the RNG and get the item. And is that actually worth it? Looking at it right now, that'd be 750 exalts for just the Orbs of Chance. Then you've actually got to get the items. From random hearsay, I've heard many people have rolled, say, Headhunter within, say, 10 attempts. So that's awesome. But I've also seen various videos of people showing evidence of, say, purchasing and managing 100 chance orbs and trying that on their most valuable options like Astromentis and completely failing. Their investments to purchase that many stellar amulets, you're looking at, say, towards 1,000 exalts. But then you have the Orbs of Chance, 750 more in the case we just looked at. So that's an investment of between 1,500, 1,750 exalts to attempt roughly 100 rolls, give or take. Imagine you actually land the roll and you pull the ascendancies. That's going to be over 100 divines in value. In that example, you've invested, say, like between 15 to 17 divines and gained over 80 in value, maybe towards even 100. So obviously, it's worth it. But first, you need to actually have that investment ready to go, which is a small selection of players in the first place. And then even in the attempts that I've watched, I've seen people lose against that RNG and get nothing out of it. That massive investment, gone. So personally, I don't think it's worth the risk if you're someone that just has enough funds to try that. More like you're someone that has enough that it's not going to bother them. Obviously it would suck, but it's not going to ruin you. You're already kind of swimming in it. I would say the general rule is, like I said, orb of chance what you can, when you generate it yourself, but I wouldn't invest in it unless you're already basically crazy rich. So why are you watching this video? But there you have it, a few methods to consider with that patch in mind. I do hope this was useful to you in the extra context of that patch. If you guys have any extra plans or advice around these topics, let us know in the comments. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.